Well, thanks to all 280,000 of you who watched my last video on this fantastic machine. If you watched to the end, you would have seen the classic Hollywood twist. The tagline was, and the clickbait, I suppose. Yeah, hands up for that one. Classic YouTube favourite, this Alfa will ruin you. Well, if you watch to the end, you find out that it ruins me for anything else. There's nothing else out there that is kind of versatile, dynamic. It's a perfect all-round car. Now, in this video, I wanted to delve a little bit more into that as to kind of why it suits our purposes, why it's ruined me for anything else, and why it's just not going anywhere despite having a new car on the driveway. I've gone electric, I've gone Audi e-tron GT. Now walk around the car, I explain to you kind of, yeah, why it's just right for me, why it's becoming iconic, and in time it will become an absolute icon of that kind of engineering tie-up between Alfa Romeo and Ferrari. The same engineering team that developed the 458 Speciale were put straight onto this project, and it just feels like a little mini Ferrari, 4 seats, luggage space, and cylinder deactivation, which the Ferrari Cali T engine actually doesn't have, and this is 6 of the 8 cylinders of the California T engine. It shuts down the right bank of cylinders and light loads and all the rest of it, and it driven sensibly, I suppose you get 40 miles to the gallon. Driven not so sensibly, you're getting 8, 9, 10, and the fun factor shoots straight up through the roof. So that's why it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. It's a car of two halves. It's got different personalities, different uses, all in that kind of DNA selector, which changes the character of the car, changes the usability of the car. It's kind of inconspicuous, especially in this color. You can park it up at Tesco and people go, oh, that's a funny looking 3 Series. So that's exactly the way I like it. It's a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing. So the heart of any Alfa Romeo is, of course, the engine. This is a 2.9 litre twin turbo V6. 6 out of the 8 cylinders, effectively, of the California T engine. It's a marvel. There's 2 ECUs in here. One of them actually thinks this is a 1500cc 3-cylinder engine without turbos. The other one, it knows better. It's got the full fat 500 plus horsepower, massive aluminium strut tires, and of course fantastic double wishbone suspension up the front. Makes this car just handle out of this world. So what really makes a difference to me is kind of how the car makes you feel. Swoopy curves, carbon fibre, little accents of aluminium, these beautiful metal, what seem to be perfectly placed shift paddles. The little fact that you get to see the underside of that unpainted carbon fibre under the bonnet. It's simple things like the vents. Everything that's tactile in this car is absolutely glorious. Even the gear shift. But what makes this car so special is this little dial here, the DNA race switch. That's what turns on and off the kind of the Jekyll and Hyde personality of this car. In advanced efficiency mode, of course, we talked about cylinder deactivation. In the N and A, when light loads and slower speeds, certainly less than 77 miles an hour thereabouts, you've got that cylinder deactivation for those long runs. Now, usability probably in the region of 300 miles to a tank is pretty common for me. Given the hands of my wife, who's always late for work, probably a little bit less, and she's left it on the red light. Perhaps you know other people who just run the cars till they're empty, and then they take something else on the driveway and run that till it's empty, and then I go and fill it up anyway. That's what's nice about an electric car. The e-tron GT, plug it in at night and it's always full. Limited options as far as the interior is concerned. It tends to be Alcantara on black. There are a few kind of red below the dash, Those are few and far between. This carbon fiber steering wheel is an option, as are heated seats, heated steering wheel. One thing that makes it really, really usable is the active cruise control, or the radar cruise control. It brings the car to a halt behind a car at a roundabout or traffic lights, and then all you do is tickle the throttle and it moves off again to your original set speed. That's a thing as a daily driver I really, really come to appreciate. First car that I've had with it. Obviously, I've had cruise control before in other cars, but it really, really came into its element as a daily driver. Now, if it's a weekend warrior, it's less than that, but this car does everything. Why not get one that's spec'd now? And they're pretty much depreciated. If you have a spare 30 grand, you will get yourself into a 2017 car. 2017s didn't have Apple CarPlay. This one does. So it's got wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. Eng Custom are the people that I got for that. It was a DIY install, just piggybacks on the radio unit, the head unit, which is buried in under the dash here. It was about a 30-minute job. I dragged it out to about 60 because I wanted to take some photographs with it as well. Heated seats, heated steering wheel. Makes all the difference. This has got the upgraded Harman Kardon stereo system. Can't comment on the original one. I don't know what it sounds like, but this one sounds pretty good with the old subwoofer up behind the back window. It's fully metal paddle shifts that when you're on it are always in the right position. You know where they are because they're attached to the column, not the steering wheel, so you don't get confused with up and down as you can do with other cars. The kind of Jaguar and the Range Rover being two that I can recall off the top of my head. But it's the DNA button that makes such the difference in this Jekyll and Hyde mentality. One is a fire-breathing monster, and the other one is something that you're quite happy pootling it down to the shops and parking it up. As I said, it just looks like a bit of a fancy 3 Series, which is great because I love the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of idea of this. But on the road, ultimate respect. If you know, you know what these cars are all about. I've never had any hassle on the motorway with someone tailgating because they know they're just going to get embarrassed with the whole thing. This cable's only here to keep the phone charged whilst I'm using it for sat-nav on the way to work. There are other ports in here with 12 volts, etc., etc. I have to say, everything in this car is just the way you would want it. There's nothing else that I would even say to Alfa to go out and change. And of course, the driving experience puts that big smile on your face. So first thing you'll notice in this car is how quick the steering is. Secondly, you'll notice what a different feel the brakes have. This is one of the first cars to have brake-by-wire. It has an early Continental system in there. Now, the only consequence of that is it takes a little bit of getting used to, and maybe pulling up to a stop is not the most graceful thing in the world if you're doing that classic kind of cadence braking where you come off the pedal. No, it's not a function of the brakes, believe it or not, and I don't know whether anybody else has mentioned this before. It's a function of the ZF 8-speed gearbox. That gearbox effectively locks up at 1500 RPMs. The torque converter effectively engages a clutch, and that's what it is. There is no wasted power through the engine through to the drivetrain. Now, as a result of that clutch has got to decouple, and what I have found though is if I pull both pedals back just before I come to a halt, it puts the gearbox into neutral, and you can come to a beautiful stop nice and smoothly, if that's your thing, at a junction, which I'm going to do down here. Next thing you'll notice is how kind of smooth compliant the suspension is. It's relatively quiet in here. It's no Rolls Royce, but it's good enough for the daily drive. Now, select it into dynamic or race mode, and things get a little bit more interesting. So there you go. I've pulled both paddles. It's into neutral, and I can come to a halt really, really smoothly. Foot on the brake, onto the plus, and we're back into drive again to move off. Now, once the kind of the slush box is gone to a proper torque converter, then this car is actually a joy to move on. Now, this is my favourite little bit. I'm going to put the window down. I've already got the valves open because I've got an AHM controller. And that is good enough for me. Now, you may be wondering, I suppose, a classic buyer's guide will tell you which options to kind of go for. This is a very well optioned car. In fact, it's got pretty much everything. Now, I would strongly recommend that you don't go for a car with carbon buckets and carbon ceramics, because let's face it, if your car's out of warranty and you're going to have to spend the money yourself, the last thing you want is a couple of grand a corner to replace the ceramics. And the carbon bucket seats as well, they may offer some extra side protection for the 1% of time that you're actually ragging this car on. The side bolsters on the normal comfort package, the comfort seats, they can be increased and decreased. They can be set individually for your own body shape. I found these seats to be more than comfortable. They've got the memory function as well as being electric and as well as being heated. And if you option the carbon bucket seats, you lose the ability to heat the seats, and you also lose the heated steering wheel function as well. So get a car with electric memory seats. Don't worry too much about carbon buckets, and don't worry certainly about carbon ceramics. These brakes are more than good enough. In fact, I've upgraded the pads to EBC yellow stuff pads, which have been working a treat, certainly for the last 20,000 miles or so. The other feature of this that I really, really like, besides the Harman Kardon stereo, is the adaptive cruise control. You press one button, set it, and now we're coming to a line of traffic. I haven't hit the brakes at all, and we are now coming to a halt. That's it, 9, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And I've done nothing. So if you're getting distracted for whatever reason, shouting at the kids in the back who are getting a bit rowdy because they're having a whale of a time in here, and now as the traffic starts to move off, all I'm going to do is tickle the accelerator, and that's all I've done. A little light tap, and we're moving away again. I've set it for 37 miles an hour. We're in a 40 mile an hour limit, and I can set the distance to the car in front. Now, I tend to like the closest setting, because if you leave any more than a slim gap here in the UK, someone will invariably fill it. Talking of filling it, if you've got a wife like mine that leaves the car with the red light on and takes something else with more fuel in it because she's running late for work again, then you get to enjoy a nice Sunday drive out to the fuel station to put some premium unleaded into it. I haven't touched the accelerator pedal at all, and now it's coming to a brake at a roundabout. You know what? Okay, I wouldn't necessarily use the car like this round town, but certainly on the motorway, and more especially in stop-start traffic, it starts to come into its element. So it all adds to the practical nature of this car. I've got an AHM valve controller in this particular car. It came with it, and I was totally unaware until about a year down the line, which I was searching a rattle at the back. Turned out to be the drop links, by the way. I found a little valve controller down there. I didn't know who AHM were, so I googled it, and then I remembered there was a key fob actually came with the car, and I hit the button, and lo and behold, the valves open. In the earlier cars, they didn't open until you were race mode. On the kind of slightly later cars, 2020 I believe onwards, the valves open with dynamic mode. But in this particular case, I'm running it in advanced efficiency mode, and I just keep the valves open all the time. To be honest, they're not too intrusive. This is running the standard exhaust. There's more than enough noise in the cabin, more than enough noise for everyone to enjoy outside without going for the Akaprovich exhaust. Now, if the car came with one, I wouldn't worry too much about that, but that's certainly not an option that I would particularly go out looking for. So you don't need carbon ceramics. You do not need the carbon bucket seats, and you do not need the Akaprovich exhaust, but every other option is probably worth it. This beautiful Alcantara and carbon steering wheel, aesthetically pleasing, but it's your touch point of the car. It's like the wheels and the alloys are kind of the eyes and the windows to the vehicle. The steering wheel is the kind of window to the interior. And as a spectacle, an addition, you wear this car like a good Armani suit. The subtleties of the carbon fiber, the kind of curves of the interior, an absolute joy. Everything you touch has got that sense that it's actually been thought about. What more can I say? So this car is not about how comfortable it is as a daily driver. It's not how it looks. It's not how quiet it is. It's not how economical it is. It's certainly not how cheap it is to tax and insure and run it as a daily driver. It's all about sticking in it in manual. It's all about finding your favourite back roads and letting it all come to life. So this is all about how a car makes you feel. From the moment you open the door, sit down, cos it yourself, strap yourself in, start it up, and off you go. It is an experience every time. Lots of cars I've got bored with very, very soon after purchasing. This car gives you a sense of occasion every time you step into it. There's just something about pressing that little red button, putting the DNA switch in dynamic and hurling yourself at the horizon. It does it in such an explosive fashion that it never gets old. And I suppose that's the ultimate expression of motoring. You want that feeling on a daily basis without it costing you the absolute earth. Buy wisely, look after it, and it will reward you handsomely. Finally, to me in the boot, for a little bit of a summary. So it will come as no surprise to you that I couldn't recommend this car high enough. When Ferrari and Alfa get together, they do something rather special, and this car is no exception. Simple fact is that it's got this Jekyll and Hyde DNA, literally. It's a car for all seasons. It's a car for going longer journeys. It's something for that weekend blast. It's comfortable. It's quiet when it needs to be. It's raucous and ferocious when you don't want it to be. I cannot recommend this car high enough, I have to say. It's not without its quirks, it's not without its kind of foibles, but get a decent warranty, buy from the right sources and buy wisely. Get a decent spec car, because let's face it, they've done the kind of depreciating now. Someone that ticked the boxes and spent 7, 8, 10 grand on a car, on extras, with the extra audio, with the heated convenience, the electric memory seats and the radar cruise control. You may as well wait for one of those cars to come around. Get one with the full Alfa history, simply because the service packs were available. Why would you not spend the money on a service pack when it actually saves you money? Just buy carefully, buy from the right sources, and you will have a car that is kind of contradiction to the term of kind of jack of all trades and master of none. This is quite the opposite. This is kind of master of everything. If you want out-and-out luxury, go and buy a Range Rover. If you want 60 miles to the gallon, go and buy a 320D Touring. if you want something that does kind of everything, the Alfa Giulia is right there in general, and of course the Quadrifoglio individually is just a spectacular car. It will go down in history as one of those great drivers' cars. It's pretty, it's practical, it's not a huge drain on the wallet, and by God, it lights up your day. So on that non-bombshell, I'll see you for the next one. All the best now. Bye-bye.